Keys to the Commonwealth, a podcast where we share the real stories of local community members who are using real estate to build personal wealth, along with tips and tricks from professionals across the industry. And now, your host, Landry Fields.
Welcome back to another episode of the Keys to the Commonwealth podcast. Landry Fields here for another week, another guest, and an exciting conversation. Don't know where it's necessarily going to lead, but honestly, these days I'm kind of excited about that and kind of going with the Rogan side of experience and how we do this. So with that being said, I'm excited for Elijah Zimmerman to be on the show today. Elijah, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, very excited. Thank you for inviting me. Excited to get here and kind of share and see where it goes.
Yeah. We've been talking for a little bit. Obviously, seen you at a lot of just the networking groups, the real estate side of things, et cetera. I know you got hands on a lot of stuff, so we can go down any or all of it. I think a lot of it I don't even know about yet. So,
sure.
But just your past, your history, where you've been, what you've been doing. So, why don't you back up and tell us a little bit about yourself? Hop in the DeLorean, as I always say, and how'd you get to where you are now?
Yeah, it's funny. It's a little bit of everything. You know, truth be told, it starts with, how our parents raised us and grandparents and learning from them.
Yeah.
So the beauty of that starts is my grandfather dropped out of fourth grade. I've got like two pivotal moments that have led me to trying to figure things out as we continue to do so. Grandfather dropped out of fourth grade education, 5 siblings, mom and dad lived in a tent picking oranges in Texas heat. And
this was your grandfather?
Yeah, this is this is my mom's
dad.
So
then she grew up that way.
And so, it was wild. So like, they're like, hey, this is what we have to do to support the family. And that's what they did. And that side, so I'm 5th generation Hispanic American on that side.
Okay.
And so, and then he inevitably, owned his own house, started a landscaping business, was working for huge casinos in Nevada and ran a very successful business. And then my dad is also, he went into the Marine Corps, retired, but then came out and has been remodeling for 20 years.
Gotcha.
So always kind of around real estate, and that's kind of where it picked up, where it was like, okay, they created their own schedules. They had strong family units. Both of them were single family incomes. And so that was a great way to say, okay, well, how do I learn from those and then take this? And so, early career I was a leadership consultant for my fraternity. So got to travel the road, made no money, right? But
those were the best lessons are made though. Like when you're just doing it because like there's something driving you or there's something like you're like, I'm going to learn so much out of this.
Yeah. And we did. And I went from Missouri to North Dakota. So I really had like time on the road.
Wow.
So it was podcasting and book listens, and engaged the first year and married the second, but I was on the road 8 or 9 months a year. So that, helped strengthen our relationship, where it was, all right, how do we communicate? How do we connect? Right. When I'm in Grand Forks and it's snowing October 1st, right? It's like, oh, you need a jacket? Yeah, I forgot a jacket.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
But so that's, so that kind of started, but those conversations and alumni.
And to that point real quick, if I could interrupt the story there, is like, that kind of made me think about like my own family. Like my dad is the opposite of like handy. Love you, Dad. But like, he'll try to do some things, but it was like, he came from my grandfather who was like, you kind of just, they were hardworking people. And so they would hire some people to do certain things, but I think the value of just hard work and taking chances in general, I wasn't around real estate or handyman type of scenarios, but I saw the hard work and the effort, and sometimes it's, whether it was a second job or whomever it was, or just like the value of doing business the right way, but also working hard, no matter what background, specific industry wise it was.
Yeah.
I think it was we kind of had 2 different paths, but me and you were, I think, very similar in that entrepreneurial standpoint.
Yeah, very, very similar. We take those lessons and evolve them, right? So, I always laugh and say, Dad can, swing the hammer and he's got it fixed 17 different ways.
Yeah.
But I learned, he always answers the phone.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
and
same
like,
with mine.
Right.
Yeah.
So like you're like, what are you doing? And he's on a roof or in a crawl space and he's on the phone. But that's how he built relationships. And then where I've tried to come in having some, leadership consultant background, working for different marketing companies. I'm like, okay, well, let's apply the business side to that.
Yeah.
And so through that, it's like, all right, how do we run a real estate agency? How do we run Airbnbs? How do we run a general contracting company from the business perspective to one, first and foremost, take care of people, but two, all right, how do we, not just, hey, like, and it's no offense, but it's like, hey, this is my second career. Let's sell some real estate.
Yeah.
It's like, no, like, where's the automation that takes place that says, here are the utilities you're going to have to turn on, and it's auto set up and it's taken care of, and here are all the connections, and here's the vendor list of everything they need.
Right.
And so that was the type of thing that I started saying, like, there's a huge gap. And so that's, hard work, obviously, answering the phone, picking it up, crawl spaces, roofs. I didn't have a spring break until junior year in college. They're like, where are you going?
I was working all through college. But honestly, I think it did so much more for me. Working a job all through college, and I would figure out a balance. So I was like, I had to work, I had to pay my college, a big chunk of my college tuition, which I'm not mad about. I mean, it taught me hard work, but at the same time, balancing still having some fun and having friends at the same time. And so, there was like a real world scenario real quick, rather than just kind of like, no offense to anybody that's obviously hit pause and gone to school for 4 years. But, I think we've talked about them before, like the ROI on just hitting pause on going to college for 4 years, I don't think is,
as long
as you're not, you need to be doing other things, even if you're doing it, I think.
Well, there was a moment where I was almost not going to go to college because I made $20,000 after senior year landscaping. And so like, I made, $1,000 this summer. I'm like, well, I made $1,000 mulching Saturday, so like, I was like, wait a second. And then my first job, it's funny, right? 4 years, right? The pause, still working, because dad's like, well, we got 3 roofs. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to let you get on the roof by yourself.
Right.
But the first job out of college paid $23,600. Now, yes, there's valuable lessons and
yearly salary.
Yeah, that was a yearly salary, and I made that the summer before I went to college.
Yeah,
and I was like,
you're like, wait, this doesn't add up.
Yeah, wait a second. So
that's a whole nother conversation about the ROI on college as like, in some ways you can do it the wrong way, you can do it the right way. I think in a lot of ways now.
Well, and you look back and say, okay, so what was I able to give during college? What did I gain? And for me, I started in 2010, graduated in 2014. And so I met my wife.
Mm-hmm.
I was a member of Beta and helped refound that chapter that grew to 150 members, and it's doing great. But I majored in communications because I was like, well, I can use that to talk to anybody anytime. Yeah. And then I also say I majored in involvement, so student activities board, all that stuff. So I was always interacting, always working with people. But some people just hide in the classroom.
Yeah, it's kind of that concept of scarcity, right? Like our grandparents really probably wanted to push like college education. There's a lot of times where like even people our generation or our parents' generation were first generation college graduates, right?
Yep.
Which is an awesome thing. But I'm like, well, from the side of scarcity aspect, it's kind of almost become like a high school diploma in a lot of times, where it's not a separating factor anymore.
Yeah.
So therefore, finding ways to get that degree without necessarily going into $100,000 of debt or more, maybe we can find a better way to do it without setting ourselves up for more success down the road, rather than a struggle right out of the gate.
Well, and that's what they knew from their parents, right? WW2 happened. Everybody came back and went to school on the GI Bill, you know, and continued to do so. And so that's what they saw. They're like, you don't want to work this hard, literally be in the trenches. And so, today, I mean, personally, I had a full ride to UK. It's one of the reasons I ended up going, right? Scholarships and this and that. And so, I mean, without it, if the purpose was to make money, then it would have made more money to not go, obviously. 4 years of education, I gained a whole $1,000 a year. But unless it's a specialty career, unless it's like I'm dead set on being a doctor, I'm dead set on attorney. I don't know the usefulness. You get on YouTube and find anything you ever need. So
switching it over to like the entrepreneurial aspect that I think we obviously both have, I think that's what it really taught me, is that I worked 25 hours a week while going to school at the same time. And if there's anybody that's an entrepreneur knows, it's not like you just get to be full-time entrepreneur out the gate. You're trying to balance working a job that pays you some kind of income to make ends meet, while doing a whole second thing on the side to say, hey, if this works, this can be maybe my one and only type of deal. But career wise, like we were talking about some of them with the they think it's more just this trajectory of just complete vertical the whole time, where a lot of times it's like, no, it's going to go a step, maybe I need to take a step back. And the value of taking chances and taking a step back in order to take 5 steps forward, I feel like is lost. And I get it. It's a lot of fear that comes into play with that in some respects.
Well, it's hard to burn the boats, especially with the cost of everything and family and life and everything in between, right? Mm-hmm. And especially when you're that young age and impressionable, you want to have a car to match this, or you want to buy this or whatever. And so once you stop caring what other people think, that stuff doesn't matter. And so, I've gotten really good at that in the last couple of years. Allie, my wife, will say it's been a few more, but
right.
Probably all wives are like, no, you stopped a while ago.
Yeah.
But, no, I mean, it's hard to burn the boats.
Yeah.
And, even today, I still have a W-2 job.
Yeah.
Now, it's an awesome job where it's in marketing and it's sales. I create my schedule and I travel the state doing Kentucky tourism stuff.
Really?
But, yeah.
Oh, I think I knew that, maybe.
Yeah, well,
so why don't we fast forward to the rest of the story? Okay, so fast forward to how'd you get into everything you're doing now then?
Yeah. So to jump into there, how I got to where I was is 2020 was the best year ever for tourism, right? Made a killing, tripled my income from the year before and the job I was doing. Well, 2020 happened and you're not allowed to travel and lockdown. So like that got cut in half. And I was like, absolutely not. As a head of the household, will I let someone else justify my income? It was that was the decision. And so I had my real estate license and had started to dabble around. But then there is that kind of fear of like, well, why would someone want to buy a house from me? Like they know somebody. Well, I just threw that out the window in 21, ended up selling 21 houses and building 5. And so
I'm sorry, you did that all in 1 year?
Yeah. Yeah. So 2020, the income split. 2021, I was like, no, we're going out this full bore.
Yeah.
And so then jumped on it and I was like, okay, great. And now, of course, the whole thing is interest rates were low. Everybody was buying.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, so these are going to double. What does the 24-month plan look like? And what that looked like for me is turning that all into investment property.
Yeah.
So, the only things we did is I bought a truck because, Section 172, and I'd rather keep it than give it to, the Fed. And we upgraded our house, but that had an unfinished basement. So there was a quarter of equity in it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, those are the only 2 things that we did with it. Every other dollar went straight into long-term, which I eventually sold the duplex quick. I was like, all right, I'm not in it for long-term. And then Airbnb.
Yeah.
So
what's your portfolio look like now?
Right now it's 8. So eight units.
That are all Airbnb?
Yeah, that are all Airbnb.
Mostly Powell County area, I think, or something like that? 6
of them, yes. Yeah. There's 6 mini cabins down there that we took 2 acres and built up. And
I've seen them on Instagram, something like that.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Well, that means it's working. So that's a good thing. And then 2 up here. We've got a midterm across from Baptist and then a big house right downtown next to Rupp.
I'm looking at it currently. I don't know. We'll keep our fingers crossed, but podcast probably comes out and it probably fell through, but potentially a duplex that would be great for midterms for in Frankfurt type of scenario. So we'll see.
Yeah, that'd be great.
But we'd like to get into that. We're all long term right now, and as some people may know, we were able to kind of I think switching gears a little bit. It's like all about being creative right now. I mean, because interest rates are obviously crazy. I mean, so it's like you're very limited on what you're doing. We had a conversation just today about especially on habitational and some of these things, the aspect of investing, the NOI, net operating income, there's a lot of places where that's been just decimated because of, for example, insurance rates, et cetera. And we just had our episode coming out, a few weeks ago, as far as that goes, as far as insurance and what that's going to do right for the next 12, 18 months is going to be wild. But, in a commercial space, your net operating income determines your value of your property a lot of times.
Exactly.
So,
we're
going to see. We'll switch it up. We were able to get a 12 unit, 3 quadplexes, basically 12 units at seller financing. and got just a money partner as well, just to do some quick ad value. But all the rents, we're going to be able to take every single one of those rents at some point in time up $200 within the first year or two, depending on how quick the turnover is. So
that's awesome.
It's just about getting creative right now. I don't know how I was like the whole way to there. I was like, this is not going to work. This is not going to work. This is not work. And then we someone like, oh crap, this works. And we got like 5 point.
Do it now.
No. It even got better. We got 5.5% seller financing with interest only payments for 5 years.
What?
Yeah. Right.
What?
Like, right.
Man,
I don't know like how we did it.
They're like, oh wait, can you find another one? You're like, no, if I do, it's mine.
That's one of those things. Like, you can find some stuff, but it's like you got to do the work. Back to again doing the work. Like it's not just going to fall in your lap. Nothing I've done, nothing you've probably done is just falling in your lap.
No. And the harder you work, the luckier you get.
Yeah.
But no, that's why I went Airbnb. I was like, hey, look, you can make $400 a month off this, but why would I spend $45,000 to buy it to make $400 a month? Like I could spend $45,000 on a number of other things and increase future income.
Yeah.
But that's how we got creative is after we built the houses in 21, the end of 21, we started building those cabins.
Yeah.
And I was like, this model works.
Yeah.
And so if we can do that, the note on it is, the DSCR, and this is what the crazy part is like to get creative, you're like, okay, how do you gain equity in today and how do you be able to do that? One of those is we built in the note, it's like 6.5% because we struck right before they just went super crazy on a commercial note.
DSR, it was a DSCR?
Well, no, so it wasn't DSCR, but the revenue it's a 3.5% DSCR. So, the banks are like, it has to be 1.2.
Okay.
So we've like almost tripled it.
Interesting.
And that's because we were smart about the build process. We built all 6 of them in 7 months. They were operational rollout. So 3 of them were done, and we started.
The six are all in the same complex, right?
Yeah, they're all.
So how does that work from like obviously down in more Eastern Kentucky? Sometimes the rules or red tape, there pretty much is none. Sometimes the red tape might be just being able to get things built or done from the build part of it type of thing as far as who will drive there or what kind of contractors in the area. But
well, we got lucky there too. I'm trying like August of 21, I was selling a house to a buyer that another agent had listed.
Yeah.
And me and the other agent had connected. He was on a bachelor party that weekend. I was like, hey, I'll get it closed. I'll send the check your way, whatever, right? Just kind of like took care of him. So he comes back Monday and he's like, have you ever thought about like building down here and doing more stuff? And I was like, well, actually, I have a plan for 6 cabins that I've had in my Google Drive for 2 years. And my brother is he went to the gorge all the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not a camper, right? Like that doesn't make sense. But then I was like, oh, the money makes sense, right? So he said, hey, do you want to do this? Or would you be interested? I think I have a piece of property that would work.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, he was, again, talking about multiple side incomes. He started his career in Lowe's and installing windows for Lowe's and all this, but he was an agent, but also a general contractor.
Yeah.
So we built all of those cabins with labor from down there and professionals down there, from the master electricians to the plumbers to the painters. That's the biggest feat in
and of itself, knowing the area.
Huge. So his connection made that happen.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're still doing projects together. We're great friends now.
Nice.
But without that, to your point, like how do you get people to show up? And it's hard enough to, I laugh. My dad, he says, well, I'm trying to retire, and he's leading a couple of jobs up here. And some days dad's like, nah, I'm not doing it today. Right. So that's my own father, let alone getting people to drive
and
down
that's
there.
The part about business, entrepreneurship in general, it's always still relational at the end of the day. So going back to like those relationships you can create or foster will have the highest return over anything that's on a piece of paper kind of scenario. Scenario. And most of the time it's the things on my piece of paper as far as my successes are because of those relationships.
And you can point directly to them.
Yeah.
You can point directly to them. It's Dan Sullivan's book, Who Not How. I just finished it, right? I'd heard about it for many years, but that Who Not How book is, if you ask yourself how you're going to do it, you'll certainly find roadblocks. But when you ask who can help you get there and how you can serve them in the process, infinite. It's just that's when the exponential. That's from linear to exponential.
I'm definitely we'll have to have some more conversations probably because like there's a dream I have of something similar as far as a complex of a couple different maybe short-term rentals in a different part of the state. Don't worry.
All right, and that's all right.
Thing. Got my eyes on some other parts of the state.
We'll take it.
Kind of a scenario, but we'll see. But of course, knowing myself, I'm a big dreamer. And also, you saw the podcast where we went to the cave at all earlier this year.
Oh, I missed it. No,
I'm talking about the cave in Hocking Hills.
Yes.
So I went there and had a connection with the owner. And he's kind of built, but I'm more of that's
right. Yes.
I'm more of like maybe not that wild of like a dreamer.
Like all glass front. Cave,
but I'm like probably like in my mind, I'm like, that's kind of what I would want to do in some respects as far as making it almost too crazy and too special. But I don't know if that's just me. I don't know if that'll happen.
My brain goes, how do I fund it? But now I need to figure out the who on that side too.
Yeah. So there's different ways to do it. Obviously, like I said, being creative from so many different angles and so forth. But, and if I could pause on real quick back to your actual W-2 job, like that's part of the thing that's I think has been so unique about the state of Kentucky from investing on the tourism side to the Airbnb point as well.
Yep.
Of like, and you can probably attest and speak to this more, which is why I'm asking it, which is the aspect of the Bourbon Trail.
It's huge.
And I had no idea. I did not grow up like my household. There was no alcohol in my house growing up.
Sure.
It was more of a traditional. My dad was a pastor. Don't drink, smoke, and cuss type of scenario.
Right.
But I think a lot of people have kind of loosened up for sure. And I technically am a minister myself, but like on the side. But I love bourbon and so forth. It wasn't until I started going to these places like the Buffalo Traces and the stuff like that. And you're like,
see all the license plates.
Yeah, you see all the license plates, or sometimes they'll ask you like, who here's from Kentucky? And it threw me off. I was like, wait a minute, you're asking who's from Kentucky, not where are people from? And then I start realizing every time it was just me or my party were the only ones from Kentucky every time.
Every single time.
And what does that number look like?
Sort of on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, you're the tourism folks. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like the Napa Valley. And I don't know if most Kentuckians really grasp how big it is. So I want you to kind of just dive into that a little bit.
Yeah,
on how,
absolutely.
From your perspective, the bourbon industry, tourism, how it's grown in the last 5 years here, so forth.
Well, it's massive. So this year, I guess 22, the total revenue gained by tourism impacted dollars were like $13.6 billion. Of that, it's the leaders are bourbon and horses, but it's bourbon. It's like 8 or 9 billion.
Was horses the front runner forever, and then bourbon surpassed it, or has it always been kind of pretty equal?
It's always been kind of, speaking out of line, it's always been a kind of equal.
Yeah.
But with the resurgence of bourbon, especially after clear liquid, right? It was all 90s and early 2000s, all rum. It was all vodka.
Yeah.
And bourbon is the thing you drink when you're more sophisticated, so to speak. And so the investments are wild.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because not only Bardstown is the home of bourbon.
Yeah.
There's like 17 distilleries within 15 or 20 minutes.
I love Bardstown.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's the best place.
If I could get in there, I've looked for
it's like lockdown tight there.
It is.
Like you got to live within a certain radius, I think, don't you?
Yep, you got to live within it. There's like certain radius, walls can't touch, the conditional use permits don't transfer, and so you just have to know an old Bardstown family.
Gotcha.
And they're not taking any new applications right now.
Really?
Yep, for Airbnb at least. But
okay.
But in the meantime,
not that you've checked.
Yeah, well, not at all. Not at all. Not that I have seen deals that are way too expensive. You're like, they want $5 million for that,
right? For that.
But it's it's amazing because then you look back and be like, oh, okay, yeah, that's in the middle of it. But there is no more. There's a few more plots to build additional distilleries because people are coming back. Like Heaven Hill is making another investment back in, and they were originally Bourbon Row in Louisville.
Which the new distillery or the new, I guess, I don't know if this is a distillery. They moved the distillery's on a different site for Heaven Hill, right?
Yes.
So the new guest center. Tourist center is beautiful. So anybody that's not been to, I just took a group of insurance agents like last year.
Did you go to the Four Brothers Bar? It was awesome.
Up top?
Yeah, upstairs.
Yeah, we did the private tour with the tasting room in that back room behind the bar, stuff like that. And they brought out stuff. I was like, I'm a bourbon connoisseur. I was like, there's like Parker's Heritage and stuff like that. I'm like,
Yeah.
How are we getting this in a tasting? Like this is amazing. That's not a normal one. We were like, we were a big party.
Your wheat up here?
Yeah. We were a big party, and it gotten through some of the bourbon tourism groups to get to it. But, or for example, have you been to Dant Crossing, Log Still Distillery?
Yeah. I love that area.
Hidden, like, it's like an under the radar, no one really knows about it kind of thing. It's beautiful out there.
Well, and it's amazing that owner. So it's kind of funny how it all comes together, right? But I'm also a member of the Bourbon Capital Guild, which is based out of there.
So wait, hold on. What is that?
Well, it's secret society.
Okay, like wear hooded cloaks, and you got to like.
Well, you wear secret handshakes all the way in. It's an awesome group. It's got master distillers in it from all their partner distilleries. It's got connoisseurs from all over. There's folks from California that fly into events. We do barrel picks like every other month.
That's awesome.
It's fantastic.
How do you get to buy one of these picks?
Well,
through stores. We can talk after.
Yeah, we can talk. Okay. Yeah, I'll get you connected. I've got the guy. But a part of that and Log Still, that whole Dant Crossing area. The owner came out of Nashville.
Right. I knew about that because I've been heard
with music too. So he's like, he knows a ton of folks down there. So like they have what's called the AMP, and I think I'm
going there for a concert for Third Eye Blind next month.
So I was gonna they're not small people.
No,
they're having
Lady A just played there.
Yeah, they're having like home runs come up. And so
it's so beautiful. Like the sunset sets right behind the stage. If you don't know anything about it, look it up. The AMP. At Dant Crossing,
it's fantastic.
In Kentucky, and it's a hidden.
And I've got to stay on the original mansion that's spent a bazillion dollars to fix. I've got to stay there. I don't even know if it's on Airbnb. It's kind of like guest
usually
things.
for wedding guest related things or events like that. Is the restaurant open yet?
I know
they're building it.
Yeah, they're working on it still. Yeah, it's not open yet. Though.
Okay,
I think they were trying to get it done for the Bourbon Festival that was this past weekend. Yeah, but I don't know if it
I need to get to that. Is that worth going?
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to get there to the Bourbon Festival sometime.
Oh, it's awesome. I haven't either, but now I'll have to go because I've got, through the guild, I've got a locker in down there right off Main Street. So I'll have to get down there and enjoy it.
Because that's the thing about speaking to the bluegrass as a whole. And I've heard people say this, and it's so true. The older I get, we hit that Labor Day weekend in September in Kentucky, and it's like just the state of Kentucky is on one social event for 4 straight months.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see
it's
in January.
People want me to want to travel or do this like that. I'm like, no, get my traveling done because I kind of just want to stay here in the state from those 4 months between
we've got Keeneland.
Polo. That's right. So I don't think most people know about that. I didn't even know about that.
Yeah,
we just ran into each other again. There's a polo match. I forget what it's all. I kind of know what it's for, but
it's like, how do you describe it? It's like for charity, but it's like it's the opening day of Keeneland sales. So they always had everybody in.
Oh,
so I didn't know that till that night either. So they had everybody.
Was that your first one?
Yeah, it was my first one.
Okay, that was my third one. It was I summarized it this way: it's a wedding without having to sit for the ceremony.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
You get to stomp divots.
It's like, there's kind of a match over here, but also party and just
it's so good.
But no, opening day for Keeneland sales. So I guess they've hosted it forever as a welcome back to Lexington.
That's my kickoff every fall. All right, fall's here now. With football, Keeneland.
Yep, here we go.
Fall social events. I just love Kentucky and those 4 months. Going to the gorge during that, the leaves are turning.
It's going to be beautiful.
Oh, man.
But no, man, the tourism side of things have grown exponentially. 2019 was, of course, the best year until last year because the recovery had started. So, and what's nice for us is we're not a major business hub. And the way I say that is that the leisure spending has made up for the lack of 19% of business spending for tourism. Because you'd go on trips and you'd go to conferences. Yeah. Those have started back up.
Yeah.
But leisure, and especially with bourbon, people are or bleisure, right? They'll come and they'll have a conference, but then they'll stay 3 extra days to hit the trail.
Yeah.
Or they'll stay to go to the horse farm or to go hike. And so, it's a nice influx where you can look at all the numbers. And this is why I'm actually an Airbnb and short-term rentals. Right. Because it was the gorge is up 2,000% since 2010. Oh, okay. Well, continued development. Oh, they're working on infrastructure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And I just saw this on a list the other day of the top 5 best states to, I guess, put more or less industrial and just creating jobs in that kind of capacity.
Yeah.
And number 1, Kentucky.
Yeah.
And then you'll love them, hate them, whatever it is as far as a current governor of Kentucky type of scenario. I'm throw that out the window. But the fact that we've been getting a ton of these industrial jobs like this and plants is awesome.
Yeah.
No one can deny the fact that that's a great thing for our state.
No, which is also funny because then you go and look, and it's also this weird gap. You got Blue Oval going in E-Town in Hardin County. It's going to double the population.
Wait, what's going there?
Blue Oval. It's the big Ford plant.
Oh, okay.
The huge, yeah. So
Ford battery
they deem
one.
it. Yeah,
we're now like EV capital US or something like that, as far as the batteries or something like that.
Right. Yeah. I think what they think is everyone's going to move up because the coal mining jobs are gone and do EV, but we'll see. But this
is the one thing I know about Eastern Kentucky. They're not going to move from Eastern Kentucky.
They're not coming up to do your batteries. I'll tell you that much. So this livelihood for that? No, I'm good. That livelihood took us away. Yeah. But no, it's also a big gap too, because you can go down there and they're building massive multifamilies, right? So you know it's on like 524, 525, Angliana, like those styles.
The whole strip from Louisville to Nashville is going to become, I think it's going to blow up.
Yeah, well, because the other big plant is in, I think, Bullitt County, like Shepherdsville. So it's on 65, and then E-Town's right, like, so so it's posed for growth. Now it's like, okay, where can you put everybody?
Yeah.
Like, how does that look
and then
like?
again, still there's distillery after distillery popping up like everywhere type of scenario. What was the new one? Is it Blue something that's going into Georgetown that is going to build a new Blue? What is the word? It's got a butterfly on it.
I can't remember what it's called specifically. Those are kind of the next cool projects too. You're like always like, ooh, financing. Well,
because a lot of times
with a TIF and a bunch of like, well, there's tourism development money available for the people that know how to get it, right? So you probably can't get it for funding, your glass cabin, right? But at the end of the day, they're like, well, we'll put money into industrial park, because here's $100 million, because that's what they did with all the state golf courses.
Really?
Yeah.
When was that?
Oh, that must have been 10 or 15 years ago.
Okay.
That was one of Rocky Atkins' big projects. He was able to help develop that because he was like, it's tourism centric. People are traveling, golfers are spending money. And so he was able to, I think it was under Combs, that to help develop some of that stuff. And that money is more or less sat unused. I mean, there's applications all the time. They review them weekly, but to what extent, right? Yeah. Oh, another distillery, right? Something that is a leader in that sector, especially for Kentucky, when it makes up 60% of the revenue, tourism dollars.
Yeah. So, and it's such an exciting time. Like, you look at downtown Lexington or others like that, as far as like, there's so many parts of the country that, are waffling, like are kind of worried about where things are. And I think you would agree. I just see nothing but opportunity as far as Lexington goes, or Kentucky, goes in a lot of ways.
No, I think the opportunity is there. And kind of like, we talked about before the show, I think people will, well, let's get rich fast. Well, no, it's get wealthy long. And so like Kentucky's still green. The people are still nice.
Yeah.
And like, all right, expand the time horizon. Hermosi will say it, right? Like, like everything might seem like a fire until you zoom out 10 years. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh gosh, that won't be a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
And so expanding that time horizon, like we're going to continue to grow and be successful. More people and more are going to come.
100%.
So as long and the legislation they passed for taxes and incentivized step downs, that's going to help because we're not competitive with Tennessee, we're not competitive with Indiana, and so as those revenues keep increasing, state income tax will lower, and so that's going to continue to make us more competitive.
Is that the plan?
In. Yep.
Really?
Yep. Yeah, they overshot the budget this year and was able to knock it down a couple points. Yeah. So they were like, we have to figure out something that's not just like pull the plug.
When you're surrounded both sides, like by, and Tennessee's done great, but there's not a big difference, I don't think, in Tennessee and Kentucky as far as landscape
and topography is the same.
Being centrally located. So
and especially, Nashville 20 years ago was nothing like it is today. Oh, gosh. And so expand your time horizon, but again, they were competitive back then when we weren't. And so where could that have been here? We're we have Country Music Highway in Eastern Kentucky, and we have all of these absolute legends but they go to Nashville to play.
Yeah.
They have to. Yeah. One, they save on taxes, and two, that's the hub now. So we lose them to
Chris Stapleton with the Monday Night Football song debut.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, wait, Chris? Who is that? Yeah.
You and Snoop Dogg out here. They're like, okay.
Yeah.
I don't hate it.
Yeah. And it's, but no, it's going to continue, especially as revenues go up. We see tourism grow and numbers continue to gain. It's going to help remove that and make it more competitive. Indiana is pharmaceutical land, right? So they've got Eli Lilly and a big bunch of the big companies. So that helps, Tennessee's Tennessee. So it's just getting more competitive with our neighbors.
And growing up here, I didn't think, you kind of moved around a bit for sure, but growing up here, I always said it, I didn't know what we had until I started traveling and realizing people about what's in Kentucky? I didn't really have anything to say. And now I'm just going to start rattling off stuff of why you should come visit it. Cause it's,
here's the list. Yeah. And that's every time.
It's things that you won't get anywhere else type of scenarios between horse industry and bourbon industry and stuff like that are so unique to our state that it's man.
And it's amazing. Well, that's funny. That's something I learned when I was traveling for Beta. It was I went to Minneapolis and St. Louis and Kansas City. Kansas City's pretty cool, but I got to see 15 different states. And at the end of it, I was we were married, no kids. And I was I'd rather come back to Lexington.
Yeah.
I saw it. I saw it as a young man. I was like, no, let's go back. Let's do this. And so, it's been awesome.
It. So wrap up though, I got to put you on the spot as far as what's your favorite bourbon, either line or individual one or whatever.
Oh man. Well, if I don't say anything from Heaven Hill, Jeff Crow will get mad at me.
Okay, maybe not your favorite. What's one of your favorites?
One of my favorites.
Or lines.
It all depends on the mood. Right.
Okay. Oh yeah.
But
sometimes the season as well.
I love Antique 107.
Yeah, that's if I could go to my everyday one type of thing, that would be it.
Yeah. Weller Antique 07 is great. And of course, fun fact, Buffalo Trace isn't on the Bourbon Trail.
Right.
They're the 800-pound gorilla. They're no, we're good.
I know.
So it's just which funny. Is funny. It's okay. That's
they didn't even do the spirit competitions forever. They're just
we know our juice is good. It's cracks me up, but no, I love Antique 107. And then
what about
Victor's small batch is pretty good too.
Okay. What about specialty ones that you won't find?
Oh,
for me, it's Stag Junior.
I've never had Stag Junior. Is it good?
Yeah.
Just super smooth. I haven't.
Well, of course, they dropped the Junior, I guess, technically.
Oh,
so I don't. So they could have more mass produced it. So who knows if the quality is still there in some respects. But
no, I haven't had Stag, which is most of those Buffalo Trace lines are just a small tweak based on weeded or rye, and so. No, they're all good.
I'm going to tell myself, but I'm I got to have cream in my coffee type of scenario. But I always if someone ever gives me that look, I'm but hey, look, I drink my bourbon neat, so back off.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd get there, but my favorite one's 130 proof. So I feel that balances each other out a little bit. I don't know. So.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it is.
Well, it's all to taste, right? Yeah. So it's I'm the same way. I'm I'll only mix special reserve or less kind of in my eyes, and everything else is neat because I was well, I have to taste it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So
I've had some family members where they try some stuff and they just shot it or put it in Coke. I'm nope. Okay, now I know.
Yeah, you're
I'll share it with anybody, but you're as long as you kind of are tasting it for the way it's supposed to be tasted or know what you're tasting.
Well, and the best bourbon is any that's in your glass. So it's add a little water, add a little ice, whatever makes sense.
Exactly.
So
well, cool, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. Didn't know where this was going to take us, but it was a great conversation, and we will see everybody back here in a couple of weeks for the next episode of the Keys to the Commonwealth podcast. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
To learn more about this podcast, visit our page at keystothecommonwealth.com. To connect with Landry regarding insuring your investment portfolio, email Landry at novainsuranceGroup.com or call 859-687-2004.